It's the Grand Circle Podcast with your host, Samuel Galubak and Inessa Strelnikova. It's your intimate look into the lives of world champion dancers. And now, here's Samuel and Inessa.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Here is Inessa Strelnikova and my co-host,
Sam, right here on the microphone. Today we brought you another world champion. He's a 3-time 10 dance world champion in the amateur category. He's a finalist at many international competitions such as Worlds, European, Blackpool, UK, and many more. He recently retired from competitive dancing in 2017, so we would like to welcome Marat Gimaev to our studio.
Hello Inessa, hello Sam.
Hello, Marat. Welcome, and such a pleasure to have you here with us.
It's my pleasure to be here with you.
Sam, can I start with my
Go
favorite
ahead.
question? So, Marat, how did you start your dancing? Was it your decision or someone else's? Or was it a dream that you lived? Or was it your parents' decision? Tell us more.
Okay, well, in my case, I guess it was more my mom's dream. She was doing some figure skating when she was in her youth years. And I think she was doing figure skating mostly because once she was at some ballroom dance competition somewhere, so she was amazed by the artistry and magic of ballroom dancing, and she fell in love with this. So I guess figure skating was the closest she could get in her hometown of Ufa in what was back then Soviet Union. And I guess she didn't really find exactly the same spark that she got from that ballroom dance experience, and she somehow felt she wanted her son to do ballroom dancing.
Just to go geographically, Ufa is somewhere in the mount of Ural?
Yes, that's the Republic of Bashkiria, and that's exactly at the Ural Mountains. That's right.
Awesome. We just wanted to our listeners to know where geographically this is located. So
That's right.
Ufa is in exactly in the heart of Ural Mountain.
That is
Awesome.
right.
And your mom was the inspiration of you starting ballroom dancing.
Well, I would say that she was probably dreaming to be involved somehow in ballroom dancing herself, but because in the town of Ufa there was only a choice of ice hockey or figure skating, and because there was only one sports hall, which was the ice sports hall, and that's where my mom and dad met, because my dad is an ice hockey player. So I guess this is what really happened. My mom couldn't realize her dream herself, and she wanted her son to dance.
Speaking about figure skating, your mother was an inspiration. She was inspired by figure skating, and your father and your mother. Have you had an experience doing figure skating yourself?
Not really. I think I mostly, out of two, I mostly had experience in ice hockey, playing with my friends in the yard, as all Soviet or Russian kids do, and I mean mostly did. I guess now it's not so big to do these kind of things in the yard, because life has changed since then. But there was era where there was no internet, no iPads, no consoles, and what we did was going to school, and after school you just go to the yard by your house, and all the kids spend their time playing football when it was summertime, and ice hockey when it was
I know
winter.
exactly what you're talking about, because this is my home country too. And then I understand that they had hockey, well, whatever, the ice rinks in the backyards of our neighborhoods, and then everybody was hanging out in the winter time there, and trying their skills as a figure skater to be,
Yeah, well, yeah,
or a hockey
that's right.
player to be.
Mm.
Awesome. But your mother decided that you're going to dance, and then did she find a school? There were schools at that point in Ufa,
Well,
Russia?
actually, I was born in Ufa, but my dad was invited to play in Moscow, so I basically my parents moved to Moscow when I was 1, so I don't feel myself too much of a Bashkir citizen. I'm more of a Muscovite, and um, actually my grandma took me to ballroom dancing because it's my mom's mom. Because my mom and dad, my dad was invited for work to Japan in 1987, I think it was, and we went there for 1 year because I was still preschool. But when I had to go to school, they actually left me in Moscow with mom's mom. So while they were living in Japan, I was living in Russia with my grandma, and my grandma took me to ballroom dancing
In Moscow.
in Moscow already. Yeah.
So you spent your childhood learning dance in Russia,
That's right.
and then you came to America. And I just wanted to ask you the difference in teaching styles in Russia and North America.
It's good question. I guess I could answer interestingly, but I think I'm going to disappoint you because I don't have too much of experience to see the American way of teaching. Because when we moved to America, we moved to the studio of Eugene Katzerman and Maria Manusova, and I can't really say there's a pure American. I could feel any sort of pure American teaching methods or anything like that. So I can't speak for this too much. I know for sure that in Russia, I remember that all I got was like huge love and huge inspiration just to do things together with my friends. So not so much private lessons, but more like
Group?
doing it in groups all the time. Some kind of interesting formations to some kind of cool music. So that constant sense of togetherness was always very uniting, and I think this was partly the success of that, can I say, type of teaching or kind of teaching, because when people do things collectively, I guess it's a different outcome, because they not only do it for themselves, but they feel they share responsibility, and they're responsible not only for themselves but for other people next to them.
So, following this inspirational feedback, Marat, would you answer this question? Why do you think Russia, Ukraine, Moldova, maybe Kazakhstan, all post-Soviet republics had produced so many good dancers? Is there a special recipe to that, do you think?
Well, I thought about it a lot, and I had many discussions about it a lot with our peers of a similar age as, for example, myself and my partner Alina. We discussed it a lot with her, sometimes just at home, and we came to conclusion that maybe most likely there are two main reasons. Reason number one is that historically ballroom dancing was a forbidden activity in the Soviet Union for many years.
Correct.
And you know, we didn't witness any of that, but we hear stories from the previous generations that people were organizing, you know, dance competitions, some secretly at night, you know, with curtains completely covering the windows, and so that police don't see
What's
any of
going
that.
on inside?
Yeah, so all these stories, that's just amazing to hear that this happened, that people, although there was nothing, no information about dancing, no technique information, no costumes, no fabrics, no shoes, nothing, but nevertheless, people managed to do these things, and I think partly because forbidden things
Fruit.
are fruit. Yes, they're more interesting. So this I think has had some effect on all post-Soviet republics. But another one I think is also, if not more important, is that in the late 80s and 90s, let's say it was not the wealthiest time for Russia, Ukraine, or any other Soviet republic. So people didn't have too much money. And I think this, in a way, subconsciously made people see, again, subconsciously, that this is the way for a better life. And these processes somehow happening in your head psychologically, that this is your way to get out from not having enough money, from not having good enough life. So I think these two components,
And maybe for seeking a better way to express themselves versus where it was forbidden, and in the countries where it was actually welcome, such as Europe, England, America. So people were seeking for the opportunity, but I guess it didn't start with that. It started with the passion to dance, and then they probably somehow put this together and developed it into a passage to get and to expose themselves into the rest of the world, right?
Yes, I think you're right. I think this is another point you mentioned just now, that I think historically Russians and Russian-speaking communities historically have a good dance traditions and good passion for dance, and I think you're quite right here, that this was just the another way out for this energy, for this
To express itself.
Express itself, exactly. And I think combined all three, it's resulted in fantastic generation, if not two or three generations of brilliant Russian-speaking dancers.
And as a conclusion, we have a lot of Russian, so speak, last names in the finals of the world. But they could be descent of, I don't know, Ukrainian, Russian, and all the multi-cultural, multi-diverse situation happening in post-Soviet country, right? So, including you, Marat. I guess Sam has a question right here.
Let's move on to your competitive career now.
Okay.
So you're a 3-time 10 dance world amateur, right? And you dance Latin and standard. When did you decide, and why did you decide to stop Latin and keep going with standard?
Now, this is the most important question we always get, and most popular, should I say? Yes. Actually, I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you again. There's nothing special. We just simply didn't have consistent home coach in Latin, because our teachers or our coaches were Alexander Melnikov and Irina Solomatina. They themselves were amazing, fantastic 10 dancers, But at that time, when they were coaching us, they were already very much strongly specializing in ballroom only. So somehow they themselves were quite modest about their Latin American teaching abilities, and actually I think that modesty was not something that they shouldn't have had, because I remember us having lessons with them in Latin, and they were brilliant specialists. So, but anyway, somehow it happened that we had them in ballroom, and our ballroom started to improve more and more and more, while in Latin we, at some point, the way we worked before with several teachers that were coming, visiting Moscow, or teachers that we had in London, for instance. So this kind of patterns stopped working for us. So it worked pretty well for good 3-4 years, to a point that our Latin was much better than ballroom. We're like semi-finalists in the amateur Latin pretty much everywhere, while in ballroom we were like only 48. But starting from 2003 onwards, we could feel that we can't continue our both styles develop with the same pace. So by 2005 we made final decision to concentrate on ballroom only.
Well, interesting, Marat. Well, can I ask you, how did your partnership with Alina started?
I'm going to disappoint you again. Nothing special. We were in the same studio and our coaches. We shared our coaches, Alexander Melnikov and Irina Salamatina, for many years by then already. So at the time when my dancing with my other partner, Yana Pokrovskaya, was a little bit turbulent and not working to its best, shall we say. We actually, both my parents and Alexander and Irina thought that maybe it's worth trying out with Alina.
When you are creating shows with Alina, which we've seen many and they're wonderful, so who has the final word about the choice for the show, Alina or you? Who will? And you know what? I have another question. How does it start when you're creating a show? Do you start with the choice of music, or the dance that you fell in love with? Like, how does it begin?
It was different on different stages of our dancing, because in the beginning we were, I think, too young to understand what the show really needs to be. But I remember that even when we were younger, and even now in the latest editions of our showcases, the driving force was always the music that you hear somewhere and you just fall in love with, and you have a lot of images in your mind about how it's gonna sound for people, how it's gonna reflect, your preferences in the dance. So when things like this click inside your head, and you see it, you actually visualize yourself doing it in front of people, with the lights and with the costume, that's always a good sign that it's a right idea, and it's the idea to really follow. But then comes probably the most important part: how to not mess this up, how to really make it good. So and that I remember there were few, if not many years of mistakes and attempts of different things until I personally came to conclusion that the simpler the better, really, because people easier can relate to it. They can see something that they feel in their life. They feel about what they hear in this music. So
Sometimes the simpler, the nicer it looks. The more the more complex things you add, the more messed up it looks, and people
yes, I guess this is
people
what
find it like a
yes,
mess.
this is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
But I agree. A lot of people, and nowadays can visualize great ideas, but it's always a question of putting this brilliant idea to work. Just like you said, you can visualize, you can see yourself doing this to a particular piece of music that inspired you, and you can visualize yourself doing certain moves, wearing certain costumes, but only that many people were able to actually put it physically into this reality. And we've seen you doing this. So our compliments to you. And we have a next question. Sam, do you want to go first or should I go?
I just wanted to, again, go back to talking about prestigious competitions. So when was like the first time that you stepped onto the floor at Blackpool, let's say, with, I'm guessing, Alina, right?
Well, actually, my first Blackpool experience was junior Blackpool.
Oh.
So I was fortunate enough to be to be competing at junior Blackpool for 4 years in a row.
Impressive.
Yes, so I think starting at age of 12 all the way till my last junior Blackpool at the age of 16. So these 4 years are so strongly
Embedded
in my mind and in my memories, and as if I can still remember the smell of that room, the smell of everything.
And after stepping on that floor, dancing at this amazing and beautiful competition, was it hard to compare it after to other competitions, like in Russia?
Yes, this would be a big lie if I said no. All other competitions were just the same as Blackpool. Of course, junior Blackpool will stay with me forever as something magical, because you get to dance at the age of 12 from round 1 to Blackpool Orchestra, best possible music in the world, and you're just a 12-year-old kid.
Round 1, 12-year-old, how many couples?
Round 1 was, I guess, a round of... What's the round before 96? 1:30 seconds
Just before
final.
96.
Yes. So, yeah, this was pretty amazing. And I think the fact that Blackpool festivals, regardless of junior or adult, preserving this history, preserving the traditions of music, of that special environment, the proper ballroom environment, makes it unique. And I once said, and I do believe that for every ballroom dancer that has done Blackpool at least once, Blackpool is ballroom dancing, and ballroom dancing is Blackpool. So it's the ultimate embodiment of what we do. That's the place and that's the time of year.
That's the goal of every dancer, right?
And that is the goal, yeah.
Well, great slogan, and we definitely agree with it 100%, right, Sam?
Yeah.
Besides Blackpool, do you have any other favorite competitions that you like to attend to now that you have been around the world?
Yes, I would say that the All German Open, which nobody really at that time called German Open. Everybody called it Mannheim. I remember. So that was another very special place. Everybody went to. At least in Russia, it's. I remember it was considered a must. And if you don't go to Mannheim, there's something wrong with you. So, so it was a European Blackpool at that time, I remember, and everybody went there. And the amount of memories I have from Mannheim is just countless. Mannheim was the one. I personally always loved to dance in the Royal Albert Hall, that central London location. That's amazing venue, world-known venue, very small floor, surrounded by people very close to you. You're feeling like you're a gladiator. And it was always, I remember it was always lifting my fighting spirit up a lot. Just the simple fact that it's...
Everyone's watching you in the middle?
Yes. And I remember I had probably few of my personal best, at least what I find my best performances there, because my spirit was very lifted, I remember.
It makes a very big difference. The aura in the room, the audience. It's a big thing for dancers.
Yes, and when we moved to America, I can't help myself picking Embassy Ball. Maybe because we always also you used to go to Embassy Ball all the way from Russia. I remember that.
That's a long way.
Yeah, it's a long way, and somehow maybe this
Memorable trip.
memorable trip also left the mark. But I always enjoyed very much doing Embassy Ball.
So Marat, now you go coaching. Well, now that you've retired with Alina, and you guys go coaching everywhere, all over the world. Do you have any favorite countries where you go coaching? And wanted to hear specifically, what do you think about Toronto, Canada?
I must say, I can't pick any specific place that I enjoy more than other. It's always up to the level of dedication and interest from students or pupils that really encourages you most. And I find myself very fortunate that wherever I end up going, I always find vast majority of people sincerely loving dancing, dedicated, regardless of the level, regardless of the skill. It can be a beginner dancer, but with so much dedication and love for it, and you enjoy it probably even more than when you teach, a professional sometimes.
But when you go to coach back in Russia, it must touch some special vibe inside your soul.
That is true. Now that you said it, I realize it's true, because I feel I am back where I'm understood most.
That's a beautiful answer. So, well, as a coach and a successful dancer, what would be your word of advice to the younger generation of dancers?
Younger generation of dancers. That's a good one.
Okay, well, maybe let me make it maybe more specific for you. Can you define the criteria of successful dancer able to achieve their goals and their dreams?
I think I would answer this question even a couple of years ago differently, because I think my understanding of success has significantly changed since a couple of years ago when we retired. If I may, now that you ask this, success is to get in front of others. And I don't think that should be a goal, because a goal should be not to take a first place from some other peer, but the goal of a dancer is to share your love and passion for dance while you're on the dance floor.
I love that.
Me too. I love it.
So
Well
it's
put.
actually should be more giving than taking. So the success as an institution is not the best thing for any art form.
Marat, can you tell us, during your professional competitive career, how did you physically and mentally prepare for competitions? Did you have any rituals? What did you do before stepping on that floor?
Everybody has their secret. You must have one.
No, I'm willing to share, because I want to help people, and if my little tip can help even one single dancer in the world listening to this right now, then my mission is completed. Now that I look back at it, I realize we could have done things so much better and so much more professionally. But I think we were pretty decent. We were very disciplined. We knew that it has to be a package of physical preparation, because no matter how good and skillful dancer you are, if your systems, your muscles, your blood, your oxygen is not pumping in the right with the right speed, then you'll not last
Another round.
And we were aiming not for 1 or 2. We were aiming to do 4, 5, 6 rounds. Yeah.
All the way to the final.
So physical. For us, probably, maybe that was our mistake. But for us, the quality of what we do was number one. Now that I look back at it, I realize maybe we shouldn't have had it as a priority. But this
What
is
would
what
be
we
priority? The stamina then?
No, I think some other things, some things related to how can you express the music? How can you express? Well, we can have a huge argument about what is quality. Of course, we were trying to be, to express music as much as we can and as sincere as we can. But sometimes maybe being a little too technical about certain things. But at the same time, now that I think about it, sounds maybe like as if I'm excusing myself. But at some point, I remember I asked myself, but technique is my passion. So how can I lie to myself?
That's right.
So it's a combination. Answering your question, it's a combination of physical preparation, technique, emotional, doing rounds, doing imagination, doing all sorts of psychological preparation with professionals. So this was all part of the package, and maybe sounds like I'm contradicting myself. I regret a lot of things that I could have done better, but at the same time I realize I probably couldn't have done them better because I did them from my heart.
But those things, so you did it from your heart. Those things you did, you may regret, but it got you to where you are today. So I think it was
Agreed.
good. That
Agreed.
Thank you.
Well, Marat, outside of dancing, other people have hobbies or activities that they love to do or take part in their life. Or some people have the bucket list. Do you have one? And if you do, what have you fulfilled from it? And is there something that you're still working on fulfilling?
Well, at different stages, I had different hobbies or interests. I remember all my life sports was probably my number one interest. of all.
What kind of sport?
Mostly soccer, but not only soccer really, but mostly soccer. For me, all team sports are interesting. I find a lot of sports influenced my dancing and my approach to my practice, my approach to my competitions, to my preparations. Just simply analyzing and observing and reading and watching the TV, basically following players or following their lives and following their ups and downs, reading how they deal with them, reading their confessions, and really I remember opened my mind many times on many things.
So those are team sports, and then ballroom dancing is pretty much, even though you have a partner, but it's still mostly like individual sport. However, you're telling us that the team sports have inspired you by looking at particular individuals and their life stories. And what else? What else did you gain from doing this other sports? Because
I can see the reason why you're asking this question. I don't know. I don't really know.
it's just an experience, right?
It's
It's just gaining on all of those experiences and building yourself towards your own goals and dreams.
It's just happened, and I think it was. I said I was analyzing a lot of that, but I think analyzing it was a little bit just of a follow up to real passion for it, passion to see people dying for what they love. You know, how they really, like those gladiators we were talking about. This constant conflict, this constant battle, external with the opponent and internal with their fatigue, with their lack of skills, for example, not willing to give up. I think witnessing this through many years in different kinds of sports, for me, was a lot of, and reading about it, knowing the inside, reading those confessions. I think this was, now that I look back at it, always was a big inspiration for me.
Well, thank you for sharing. This is very insightful. And may I ask you even more deeper question at this point?
This is getting very deep.
But, well, expectations could be very deceiving. In terms of expectations can drive you to greater achievements. At the same time, expectation can bring you down to the bottom, because if one created expectations and then they didn't live their life, or somebody didn't perform to their according to their expectations, it's a big crush. Or if you have expectations and you live your life to these expectations and all the circumstances, puzzled up and everything worked out, and boom, you're a winner. You're in the first place. So do you understand where I'm coming from? So when you had those moments when you didn't match to your own expectations, if you created any, I don't know if you did, but I'm just asking this question. What did you do, and how did you deal with the situation? How did you come out of it? Because I think a lot to do with success and successful couples in this tough industry, when we think about it, because a lot of people put a lot into it, time and practice, activity, their energy, and eventually they have expectations, and suddenly, something didn't work out, and then they start looking into, oh, well, what if caused that? Oh, well, the wrong panel of judges, or I didn't eat this right, or I didn't sleep enough. Whatever worked in the wrongful of their doing at that particular moment. And then this couple in particular didn't achieve what they were expecting. I'm not talking particular about you, but maybe you lived this through your life. And if you did, or maybe you have experiences from other people that share with you, what is the best way to deal with it? Because I think it's a big throwback for couples nowadays in our industry, that they're looking into the expectations and they're trying to find the guilt in some circumstances or other people. And then what's the best way to get out of it? Is there a meditation, or maybe there is like self-motivation? Anything that you could share about that?
Yeah, I think I know what you're trying to ask about. Well, for sure, I personally had a lot of trouble from such thing as expectations. I would even go further by saying that this was probably my worst enemy. And now that I think back, it was probably the most difficult enemy for me to overcome. And the fact that at some point I managed to do it, of course with help of many people, like the help of my partner Alina, help of my teachers, and not only a few, but many teachers helping with this problem. And this expectation is probably one of the worst enemies an athlete or an artist can have. It really is a problem because expectation really stops you from being in the process of what you should be doing. You are becoming someone living in the dreams, really, in not here and not right now. And instead of doing what you're supposed to be doing, really focused, really dedicate yourself to this, you just end up dreaming and expecting that you are entitled to receive something. And that's a huge problem. And I must proudly say that I had this for many years, and that was the darkest time of our practice life, because we just hated to go to the studio, because every single preparation step we took, I would stop because it just doesn't fit my expectation. And I'm actually, now that I think about it, calling it the darkest age. It was like a period of 2 or 3 years, and being the amateur Blackpool finalist to suddenly go back to the semi-final, it was a big failure to accept mentally, internally. And I must say, I'm very proud that I personally managed to overcome this, thanks to help and patience of my partner. Although during those 2 or 3 years, Alina cried probably every day. Like, I remember during those 2 years, like, we spent more hours sitting in the car for hours talking and crying that things don't work than spending those hours in the studio. And we were actually so fortunate that we quite accidentally met some guy who turned out to be a theater acting teacher, who just overheard our conversation in the coffee shop, who told us, "Hey guys, what you're saying is all wrong." And he told us what he thinks could be the way out. And I'm really thankful to him for his help, and also all my other teachers with whom I shared this problem. So I totally understand what you're talking about, Ines. Expectation is a devil. But I must say, having said that, I'm thankful that I had this period in my life, that it taught me so much. To I think dancers or athletes or any other people involved in any type of art should not confuse expectation and vision. I think it's not a good idea to have expectation about your result as a number, first place, second place, third place, final, semi-final, 24. But you need to have a vision. I remember that guy told us that you need to have such a specific vision with all the details. You need to see what dress she's wearing. You need to know what people are wearing on the first row, what song is playing. You need to know the smell in the room when you're actually making that final that you're dreaming of. This is a good vision. If you have this vision and it's supported by the everyday hard work, sweat, blood, and tears, and literally killing yourself for that moment during the practice, not for the moment of that vision, but for that moment in practice. So brick by brick, practice after practice, having this vision in mind every day, you'll get there. But vision is different to expectations, because when you have vision, you are okay to still fail. Everyday practice, you're okay to fail. You're okay to stand up, and you're okay to mess up the step here, not collect your feet in the natural turn, and instead of stopping, just keep on dancing, your spin turn.
I think that after listening to that, and all our listeners, all the dancers, I think everyone's going to be champions now.
This was very, very deep, but I agree to a lot of this, and well, it's a journey for every single one, but we're so appreciative, Marat, that you shared your own path with us. And just a last question, I must ask this, Sam. Let's say your own kid says to you, "You know what, Daddy? I don't want to do ballroom dancing. I want to do hockey, or I want to do soccer. You're going to force them into that, or you're going to support? Like, how much do you think you want your children to inherit your heritage?"
A good one. I actually thought about it. We don't have kids yet, but it's the thought that came to my mind, and I don't know how I would answer this question when I do have kids. But right now, I think, first of all, I don't find ballroom dancing such a bad activity. I think it's like unbelievably fantastic activity that can develop a kid or a person so harmoniously. It's combination of simple things as posture, physical exercise, behavior, reacting to music, reacting to your body, reacting to your partner's dance, reacting to other people around you also dancing. No wonder scientists say that it really develops your brain. It's scientifically proven that ballroom dancing
Agreed.
really is a good influence on your brain. So I think it's a very harmonious type of activity, and I think some basics or some just a few things from that, I don't mind my son or daughter to be able to to experience. Now if the kid falls in love with it and I can't stop him or her from, dedicate the entire life to it, then be it. But I don't think I will ever push to stay in the dancing just because I was involved. I don't think that's a good idea. At least now.
Oh, great. You know what, Sam? I was just thinking that Marat is sharing with us his wonderful experiences and his projectives and ideas. You know what? I was just thinking that our listeners may be willing to see some of the dancing of the couples that we bring to the show. So I think it would be fair if we would feature on our Facebook some videos of the dancers that we invite to the show.
Oh, that's 100%. We're going to have some links to some YouTube videos of whoever we interview. So look forward to when we post this on Facebook, and you'll see some videos of Marat and Alina dancing and many different competitions.
Marat, thank you so very much for being with us at this late hour, and we appreciate it a lot, and we're looking forward to speaking to Alina soon.
Well, Inessa, Sam, thank you so much. I feel a huge privilege to be here tonight with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. And we'll see everyone soon in our next episode of The Grand Circle. Sam?
Thank you guys for listening, and stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Bye now.
Bye.